Hi, welcome to the Trent Advantage webinar series for tonight's topic of financing your education. My name is Zachary Bro, an enrollment advisor here at the university. And on my right, I have Amanda Morton, who's an affordability administrator here. And just behind screen, I also have Joan Mann, who is an affordability coordinator. Joan will be answering some questions in the chat box that we do have throughout the presentation if you have anything there. But we will be saving some room at the end of the presentation just to discuss those questions live. So that's exactly how it's going to work tonight. We're going to do the presentation and then answer questions at the end. So without further ado, I am going to pass things over here to Amanda for that presentation.
Hi, everybody. So I'm Amanda, and we're going to be talking about funding your education. So we can move into the presentation now, and we'll get started. So first things first, we're going to go over what we're going to talk about. So how much does university cost? We all know it's expensive and can be scary to talk about, but we are going to hit it head on. And then we'll talk about how you can afford that. So talking about the different costs and ways to bring those costs down. And then, like I said, or like Zach said, there is time for questions. You can ask questions in the chat room, and we'll have some time after as well. We'll be approximately 20 minutes or so, and then we'll be chatting after. So getting right into it, how much will my first year cost? Now we've put the numbers up on the screen for a general undergraduate first year student going into Trent. And you can see that there's a lot of costs that go into it. And really understanding these costs is going to help you prepare and feel more comfortable coming into university. And we're going to look at opportunities to save money on these costs. So we'll go through them just step by step here. The first expense you can see is your tuition. So tuition is $6,800 or so. That's if you're full-time at the Durham campus or on the Peterborough campus. And if you're part-time, you might see that the tuition is a little bit cheaper just because sometimes the cost can be per credit or on a flat fee basis. And then you've got your fees. So fees we've put up at $1,500, and this is including your student benefits, your gym membership, your bus pass, your fees that go to all the different student organizations. So that money goes towards all the things that help you become a student on top of your tuition. And below that, we have your books and supplies. Books and supplies can be one of your biggest expenses outside of tuition. Textbooks are really expensive. So we've put $1,600 just on average. The average textbook can be upwards of $120. So we've put that amount there just to give you a good idea of what to budget for. And then what we think is your biggest expense outside of education is your living costs. So we have two different amounts here. The average cost of living at home, so living with your parents, we've put about $3,500. And the reason we've said that is because you can't necessarily just live for free. You might still want to go out and go to the movies or go out for dinner, or maybe you are buying some of your own food or purchasing some clothes. So we've put $3,500 just as a way to get through from September to April, because this is only for 8 months that you'll be a full-time student in your first year. And then what you see below that, that $12,000 cost is what we say if you're living away from home. So you're not living with your parents, you could be living in residence, or maybe you're renting a room or a house with your friends. We've got $12,000, which is a really large number, but if you think about your rent and your food and cable and everything that could go into that. And if you're a first-year student in dorms at Trent, it could be a little bit less. It could also be a little bit more. So $12,000 is a really good midpoint range just to know where you're going to start and how to budget with that. So with all of that known, you could be anywhere between $13,000 and $22,000 for your first year, which is a really large range depending on if you're living at home or not. But knowing that is really going to help you prepare. So if we're looking at ways to bring those costs down, of course, there's your tuition. If you're not quite ready to go full-time, you could go part-time and have those costs brought down on the tuition side. We've got the fees. Some fees might be refundable, so you want to talk to our student accounts office and see if there's an option to have something refunded, like your student benefits perhaps. You can have medical or dental benefits through your parents and potentially have that refunded through the student union. And then with your books and supplies, we've put the cost there as a base cost if you're buying brand new books. But when I was in first year, and you probably bought books used as well,
Absolutely.
I bought all of my first and second year textbooks for $400 used from another student. So that $1,600 cost doesn't have to be that high. It's just dependent on how much work you're going to put in to try and find the used books or figure out where else you can source that. And then we've also written in dining in. Of course, that's really expensive if you're going to be going out every single night or trying to get a coffee every day at Starbucks. So we've put in bringing your own coffee and dining in as ways to bring down the money. If you're willing to cook or make your dollar go a little bit farther with your meals, that could help you a lot. So knowing all of that, we're going to talk about how you can afford it. So on the next slide, we've got a timeline essentially that we've put together for students in their first year, starting from November of the year before you even enter Trent, all the way into the time you're at school. And if you're looking at this timeline, you're trying to find all of the ways to bring down those costs and trying to make school more affordable. And if you are looking at all of these and hit every single one of them, then we really think that you've found all the resources that are available to you. So we'll start at the top with November. So the year before you even enter school, so let's say if you're coming in September of 2018, in November of 2017, so November that just passed, the OSAP application opened. It's opened really early as when you start applying for school, so that you can go in and start budgeting already by already knowing what your OSAP could look like. And then January to April, so this January to April, our prestigious scholarship was open. So that's for students to apply to scholarships. And it's closed as of April 1st. But if you're coming for 2020, then you can still apply next January. Between March and August, so right now, we're sending out all of our scholarship offers and our guarantee letters. So if you are coming to Trent and you've been accepted, you should be getting a letter from us if you haven't already, letting you know what your scholarship is. And then in June, we've got our entrance bursary, and that is money that comes from Trent. It's free money to help you right even before you get into the school. So you'll apply for that through your My Trent, and we'll touch on it a little bit later. Your July and August, this is the obvious one. You'll hear it from your parents or your guidance counselors. This is where we want you to save your money. We want you to have a summer job, start finding out where the money is going to come from. Maybe you're applying to a whole bunch of external scholarships because they are out there and they do exist. But this is your time to really plan. Maybe you're applying for jobs at school. There are lots of jobs on Trent, on the campus at Trent for students who are in receipt of OSAP. We call those Trent Work Study Program positions, and there's lots of those across campus for you to apply to. And then the last one is September and January. So every semester that you're a student at Trent, you can apply for a bursary, and this is more free money from the school to help students who are in need. Okay, so moving along into scholarships. This is Trent's really generous entrance scholarship program, and what's great about it is that there's no application required, and it is renewable. So if you are receiving a scholarship for Trent, you are eligible to receive that scholarship for up to 4 years. So if you come in with an over 80 average in your top 6 4U 4M credits, so not your full grade 12 year, but just your top 6 credits, then you are guaranteed a scholarship. And it ranges from $1,000 all the way up to $3,000. And like I said, it's renewable for up to the 4 years, as long as you maintain an average of 80% and you keep your average above 80% and you finish a full-time course load every year. So there is a little bit of fine print, but $1,000 every year is $4,000 to help you bring down those costs. Or if you're in that 90 range, it could be even more. Now, another thing we like to point on is if you do come in with, let's say, an 89 average and you have a $1,500 scholarship, you're not required to keep that 89 average to renew your scholarship. You actually only have to keep an 80 average or higher to keep getting it. So if you come in with a 96, that's fantastic, good for you. You only have to keep an 80 to keep your scholarship. But if you have come in with that 96 and you drop down to 83, that's fine. You're not going to lose that 95% scholarship. You will still keep it because you're above that renewable range. So it's a really generous scholarship program, and we're very proud of it. We're number 1 in scholarships and bursaries, so you can see why. But we will talk a little bit about our second piece of the scholarship program, which is our prestigious scholarships. These are application-based. So like I said earlier, the scholarship application is due April 1st, so it's closed for this year. But if you're not coming for this coming year, but the year after, so you'll want to make sure that you've applied somewhere between January and April 1st. That's when it's open, because these are our high-value scholarships. They start at $3,750 and they go all the way up to $5,000. So it is a large amount of money that's available, and they are also renewable. So you can get that $3,750 for 4 full years as long as you keep your 80%. but we want to have the application for that. So you want to put in a portfolio, maybe a reference letter or certificates, anything that you can use to brag about yourself so that our scholarship committee can review your application and hopefully give you a scholarship based off of what you've submitted. Okay, so moving on to the OSAP program. This is a big part of financial aid, so a big resource for you if you're coming from an Ontario high school. If you're an Ontario resident, you can apply to OSAP. There is a lot of stigma around OSAP. There's a lot of people who won't apply for it, but we try to make sure every student applies for it or knows that they can apply for it. So what is it? It is the Ontario Student Assistance Program. Everyone will just call it OSAP, and that's fine. And it is government funding from the provincial and federal government to help you go to school. So it is a combination of loans that you'll pay back when you're done school, as well as grants. So grants are free money that you don't have to pay back. And the amount that you get from OSAP, it's really based off of what your family size is, what school you're going to, where you're living, how many courses you're taking. There's a lot of different variables. So it's really good to put the application in, at least so you know what you're eligible for. And what you can see on the screen right now is a calculator. So in that blue box, it says how much you could get. And this is a really great place to start. It's just a quick estimation of how much OSAP you're eligible for by putting in a few really quick points. So you'll say, I'm in high school or not in high school. I have this many children. I'm living away from home. This is how much money my family income is, or how much income my parents make, or how much my family income is. And once you click calculate, you'll get an immediate amount of funding that you could be eligible for. And for those people who aren't sure if they should apply, or maybe they've been told they shouldn't, this is a really great place to start because it will give you that immediate assessment and you'll know right away if you should continue on to the application. So what we've got on the next screen is new this year. So all the students who applied through OUAC, so everyone who applied to Trent, you can actually take that information from OUAC and transfer it right into your OSAP application. So it's really easy for everyone who's applied that way to go in, transfer the information, and then you've already have an OSAP application available for you. So it's making it really easy for everyone that way. You might have to fiddle with it a little bit and put in some pieces of information, but for the most part, all of that info will just transfer over. So if you've applied to maybe a couple of different places or you're not quite sure where you're going, all of that information can transfer over and you can see the different assessments that way. So it's a really great option for you to go in. But if you aren't able to link or you didn't apply through OUAC, that's totally fine. You can still go in and create a new user as well. I just thought we would highlight this because it is new and it's really great for students who are just coming in now. So once you've created it and you're now in the OSAP application, we've got on the screen just a really quick snapshot of what it looks like. It's pretty simple to look at. It's 4 steps. We would say it takes less than half an hour if you've applied through OUAC. It can be pretty quick, but this is just a generic view of what it looks like. So they want to know about the school you're going to, so what information about Trent, about you, about your family, and then it asks you to review and submit everything. So just make sure you've checked all of the answers really carefully, that you've taken your time and read some things twice. We try to make sure that people aren't doing it on a cell phone or using autofill so that none of your information is getting messed up too much. But once you're in there, you'll say that your classes are starting in September 2018 if you're just coming in September, or if you're coming this summer, you can put in May 2018 in the 17-18 application, or January, whatever it might be. You start filling in the application from there, and then once you're ready to hit submit, you'll actually get your estimated funding within a couple of days. So it's not immediate like the calculator. You do have to wait a couple of days, but this is what it will look like. So it's a really nice, colorful, easy to read screen. And what we've got on the screen is an example of a Trent student who's coming next year and the amount of funding that they could get for coming to Trent. So you can see that their program is psychology honors and they're coming from September to April. And out of their OSAP funding, they are getting over $8,000 in free money. So that's the grants, which says grants you can keep. And beside that, they're getting $6,700 in loan funding. So that's loans that they'll have to repay when they're done school, but a total of $15,300 coming from OSAP. So when you start thinking about those really large costs, so let's say that $21,000 we talked about earlier, now you're getting a scholarship, maybe you have an external scholarship or a summer job, you're getting $15,000 from OSAP. The numbers start to chip away a little bit and make it just a bit less scary, I'd say. But what's nice about this screen is it is really clear, and it can tell you right at the bottom, it has that nice wording, you could get free tuition. So we can talk a little bit about that next. But what I want to focus on here is on the right-hand side, we've written a few things. So your OSAP money, it will come to you after it's paid Trent first. So if you get $6,000 in the fall, so you'll get 60% in the fall and 40% in the winter. Of that deposit you get in the fall, it will pay your Trent fees first, so it's really easy. You don't have to worry about it. But just make sure that once your OSAP has paid the school fees, that you've gone into your student account to make sure that it is paid to zero. So you don't want to assume that OSAP's going to pay for everything. You don't want to end up with any interest payments or late fees or anything like that. So make sure that you've checked, but this is a really great view of how much money you could get. And then on the next screen, just because there is some confusion around free tuition, it has that really nice banner, that green banner that says you could get free tuition. We just wanted to explain, because there tends to be a lot of questions about it. Free tuition means that if you are getting a large amount of grant and that grant covers your tuition, that is what they're classifying as free tuition. So that student that we just looked at, they were getting over $8,000 in grants. And because we talked about Trent's tuition being $6,800 next year, they are being told that they are getting free tuition. So if your grant money exceeds your tuition costs, you are being told you're getting free tuition. That doesn't mean you're not being charged tuition, you still are being charged, but because OSAP will pay the school first, they are essentially saying that your tuition has been covered by OSAP, it is free to you. So hopefully that can clarify a little bit for some people. It can be pretty confusing, but if you have questions, you can put them in the chat room or talk to us after or send us an email, no problem. Because we're going to move along into bursaries. So bursaries are different from scholarships because scholarships are based off of your grades. Bursaries are actually based off of financial need. So financial need is determined by an OSAP application. And it is when not just a student wanting money, but they actually need the money. That's why we need the OSAP application, because we'll look at their financial situation. We'll see what resources are available to them and what their expenses are. And if we can help them out with some money, then we will. And we call that a bursary. It's not a word that's used a lot before you get into post-secondary. So it's good to know that they exist because it is free money coming from the school. So to get a bursary, you have to have OSAP and you do have to apply. So in your first year at Trent, you'll actually have 3 times to apply. The first time being in May. So between May and June, you can apply for an entrance bursary. And those are just for first year students. The amount can be anywhere between $500 and $1,000. So that could be to help you pay for your books or pay your tuition costs or towards residence or whatever it might be. But that's just for the first year students. So our way of trying to help you out before you even get in the door. And then every semester that you were a student after that point, so September, January, even if you study in the summer, you can apply for another bursary, so more free money from the school. As long as that OSAP application is in place and you've put an application through your MyTrent portal, you can apply for the bursary from financial aid and we'll review your situation and hopefully are able to help you with some more free money. So that's a really great option for you. Like I said, we're #1 in scholarships and bursaries. So that is our scholarship program. And now you know more about the bursary program. So just to finish off, those are most of Trent's resources, but there are lots of other resources out there as well to help bring those costs down or things that you might be able to access yourself. So on the screen, we've talked about RESP and personal savings. So if you're lucky enough to have an RESP from a family member or parent, then you want to be accessing that at some point. You might be asking for gifts from your parents in form of maybe a textbook or something a little less exciting than your normal gift, but that can really help. I know when I was in school, I had friends who their birthday gift or Christmas gift from their aunt was always a textbook instead of whatever else it could have been, and that really helped them. We do have private loans or student lines of credit. So that's money that you would borrow from the bank instead of getting something from OSAP potentially. If a student comes in and wants to talk to us about a bank loan, we always direct them to OSAP first because OSAP, you don't have to make any payments while you're a student, which is awesome. Whereas with a bank loan, you do have to make payments even when you're studying. So OSAP is a better option than a bank loan if you can do that. And then we've got employment. So obviously we want you to have a summer job. OSAP expects you to have a summer job, and it's great for you to have some money saved up before you come to school. But then I'll touch on those TWSP jobs. So that's Trent work study positions. Those are those jobs that are set aside specifically for students on OSAP, and they're all over campus. They're a really great option for students specifically because they want you to be a student first before you're employee. In the financial aid office and in the recruitment office, we have lots of TWSP students. And what's really great about those is that they're flexible. So a student might work about 10 hours a week, but it could be an hour before class or on Friday when they don't have class or whatever it might be. The idea is that you're getting experience, but you are still a student first. So those jobs are posted usually around June, July. Mid-July is probably a good time to start looking and applying for them if you plan on working in your first year. You might not, but they're available every year, so it's good to know what's out there and start thinking about where you might want to have a job on campus. But you can talk to the Career Center at Trent. We have a fantastic Career Center. They'll have other jobs posted as well, so not just those TWSP jobs, but other ones on campus or within Peterborough. And then on the left, we've got our external awards. So like I said, they do exist. Not everyone applies for them. It's true that there's more money out there than what people are actually accessing. So we've got scholarshipscanada.com and yconic.com, but really the best place to start is your guidance counselor. They'll have lots of information, maybe school specific or city specific scholarships or awards that you can apply for. So last and not least, we'll just summarize. So how we want you to prepare and how you're going to fund your first year at Trent is to start planning now. If you haven't already applied for OSAP, use the calculator that we showed you earlier. It's on ontario.ca/OSAP. Start saving money. So figure out where the money's coming from. You want to start budgeting maybe, figuring out where your money's going, understanding the in and out of where everything is happening. Because OSAP isn't designed to cover all of your expenses. So you will have to bring some of your own money or figure out how your finances are going to work. Look for those external scholarships and those external awards. Talk to your guidance counselor. And visit the financial aid office. So you can come see us at any time. You can email us or call us or just walk in. We'd be happy to answer your questions. We see students every day and we're not scary. We want to help you. So come see us whenever you like. And that's our presentation. So now we can take questions.
Awesome. Perfect. Thank you, Amanda, for that very informative presentation. I do just want to remind everyone that we do have that chat box going in. So if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in there now. And we're just going to kind of bounce back and forth to help answer them for everyone. So I'm just going to get down here. So the first question we do have coming in here is from Aaliyah, and it's asking, when can you apply for the work-study program?
So the work-study program, those are individual positions. So when you go onto the Trent job board through the Career Center, you'll see, let's say, admissions TWSP position, and the departments can put those jobs up whenever they like. So you might see jobs posted during the school year, but in general, they'll post them early summer. So I would say beginning of July, you want to start looking through there.
Perfect. Next question on here from Sarah. Am I supposed to use my income for 2017-2018 when I apply for OSAP? Mine will be changing quite drastically once I am actually enrolled in school, i.e., should I use my tax return for 2017 or just my estimated income for the school year?
So when you're applying for OSAP, it's going to ask pretty specific questions about your income. So most students, if you're coming directly out of high school, it's not going to ask about your income. It'll ask about your parents' income. And then it will ask for you to estimate how much money you think you're going to be making during the school year. So if you're not coming directly out of high school, which it sounds like this student might not be, it will ask for your 2017 Notice of Assessment income. So once you've filed your taxes, you'll have that number, your line 150, your total income. You'll put that into the OSAP application, and it will use that information to base the funding off of. But if anything is changing drastically in your life or something changes at all with your income, whether or not you're just coming out of high school or you've been out of high school for a while, you need to talk to our office because we might be able to help you change the application or provide a bit more information. We're always updating applications all the way through the year, and it's really important to make sure it's always up to date. So if you thought you were going to have a job and you said you're going to make $6,000 in the school year and now you're not having a job and you're making zero, that's just as important to tell us whether or not, or as the same as if you didn't think you were going to have a job and now you do have a job. You need to let us know that as well.
Totally. Next question on here from Tegan. What deposits are required in advance to secure a resident space and tuition for first year once a conditional offer is extended to students?
What is the residence deadline?
The residence deadline is June 1st, I believe, and that's a $500 deposit.
Mm-hmm. And the advanced tuition deposit is usually due mid-June or so. They haven't actually released the date or the amount yet, so you just want to keep an eye on the student accounts website. So if you go to trentu.ca/student finances, you should be able to see that information on there shortly.
Perfect. And just follow up with that question here with Tegan still. What's the deadline? What is the deadline for deposit payments, and is it refundable if Trent does not extend a final offer program acceptance, i.e., if they don't meet the overall average of 70?
Mm-hmm. So that's really a question that's directed to the student accounts office, but the answer from last year is that the tuition deposit was non-refundable. It was $600 and due in June. So if it's an issue with your admission or something like that, I would probably talk directly to the student accounts office just to make sure that you have the right information from them directly.
For sure. In terms of the residence deposit, I don't necessarily know that on the top of my head, but you could always give residents at trentu.ca an email and chat with them to see if that is a refundable deposit or not. So just moving on to the next question here. If OSAP grant funding exceeds the tuition amount and students are living on residence, can the excess grant funding be used for residence costs as a grant in addition to student loans?
So your OSAP funding, it's a combination of grants and loans. So what happens when you get your OSAP funding is you actually just get it in a lump deposit. So once the OSAP is being released, we'll actually look at your statement of account. And if you're a first year student and you owe $9,000 to Trent, let's say, and your OSAP is $10,000 for that deposit, we'll actually take whatever we can to pay the school first. So that could be your tuition and your residence and any other fees. It's not specifically allocated to just tuition and then just residence, because your bill with Trent is actually just one running total instead. So when you get that money that's for free tuition versus living expenses, it's actually just all rolled into one amount.
Awesome. So just a very similar question here from Jessica.
Okay.
If you get a grant of $8,000 and your tuition is $6,000, what happens with the remaining $2,000 that OSAP offered?
So depending on the timing, I guess, your OSAP, when you get the money, it's actually given to you in two different deposits. So you'll get half of the money or 60% of the money in the fall, and then the remainder 40% is given to you in the winter. So if you were to get $10,000 over the year, you'll actually get $6,000 in September, and then the rest of it, the $4,000, will come to you in the winter. But let's say out of that $6,000, you only owe Trent $5,000. We will send the $5,000 to Trent, and then the remaining $1,000 will get directed to your bank account that you've told OSAP. So it's not all going to come to Trent to overpay it. As long as there's excess funding, it will go to your bank account instead. So you need to make sure that your bank account's always up to date, and that's all done online now through OSAP. So just make sure it's complete and all of that documentation is sent in early enough so that we can pay OSAP and that you get your money in time.
Totally. And then any of that money that does go into your bank account, it's up to you and your discretion of how you do want to use it. Ideally, you are using it for textbook, food, and any kind of living expenses. But OSAP is not taking it back. It is your money to use to keep you sustained throughout your education. So just moving on here, another question from Sarah. Are teachers' college students eligible for in-course bursaries?
That is a great question. I'll let Joan answer that one in the chat room. She'll put that on there. The Teachers College has a bit of, the students who are in it, they can have different situations. So we usually have a lot of contact with them. So we always ask them to email us at financialaid@trentu.ca, just because the situations can be a bit different. But in general, they are eligible for most of the financial aid resources that we have.
Totally. And I did see a little nod in the corner of my eye. So there are some in-course bursaries for the teacher education students, just depending on what courses you're taking, what you're doing, and whatnot. Again, very situational in your perspectives. So another question here from Tegan. Are bursaries available over and above OSAP funding?
So Yes, the whole reason that bursaries exist is because a student has applied to OSAP, but they actually have more expenses than what OSAP is able to help them with. So the OSAP application, it gives us a rundown of what your expenses are and then what your resources are. So if we look at your first year bill, essentially like what we talked about earlier, if it's $22,000 for your first year and OSAP's only giving you $15,000, that's a large gap, and the bursaries are in place to help fill that gap. Now, we can't just hand out $6,000, for example, but maybe $500 or $700, somewhere around that, we try to help students out if we can. Every student is very different in their situation, so that's why we need the application in place. But the idea of the bursary is to help students who are in financial need. So we will look at their situation through OSAP and then do a calculation to see how much money we can give them.
Awesome. Another question here from Grace. Will the jobs be posted online? What's the web address for TWSP?
So the web address for TWSP, it's actually all done through your My Trent portal. You just want to go onto the services tab, I believe, and you'll see the Trent job board, and all of the jobs will be posted online. They're all through the different departments, and the departments will send them into the Career Center, and then they'll be posted through there. So make sure that you're looking, like I said, early July. You'll probably actually start applying for them then.
Perfect. Another question here. Are students in receipt of the equivalent of OSAP in Quebec eligible for the Trent entrance bursaries as well?
Yep, so our bursary program, we use OSAP in our presentations just because most students are on OSAP, but our bursary program is eligible for any student who's in receipt of any sort of provincial funding or government funding. So that could be any other out of province funding, it could be band funding, or whatever else it might be, but OSAP is our biggest one, so we do use that, but it can be used interchangeably with BC Aid or Alberta Aid or Quebec student loans, whatever it might be.
Awesome. Perfect. So I do have a question here from Zafran, who is a college student.
Okay.
In their application, they were told, sorry, my computer just did some funny things.
Okay.
In my application, they were told that they qualify for an entrance scholarship as their grades are above 90%. Mm-hmm. They're confused about the fact that they selected to start school in May and they've already registered for an elective.
Yep.
So in this case, when would I get the scholarship, May or September?
So our scholarship program, it is from September to April. So you won't get the scholarship for the May start because the summer semester is somewhat separate from the rest of the year, but come September, you'll get that scholarship then. Just make sure that you understand what those costs will be, and you can still apply for OSAP for this or for the summer if you like. It's open right now, but your scholarship won't come into play until September.
Perfect. Awesome. Another question here from Sarah again. If we don't live in Peterborough, can we go to any university/college financial aid office for extra assistance?
If you're talking about in terms of OSAP, the schools will be able to help you a little bit. Your best bet is to call us or email us if you have questions about your OSAP application. We can only see information for OSAP for Trent. So if you were to go to St. Lawrence College, for example, and ask them about your Trent OSAP, they wouldn't be able to look into it whatsoever. They can look at a few details on your profile, for example, but for any specific details, it would have to be through us. So wherever you are, it might be easiest to call us or send us an email. You can send us a screenshot perhaps, but we deal with students over the phone often. We'll just need to verify who you are, and we are usually able to help most people over the phone.
Perfect. Question in from Jonah. Is there a place where I can access this slideshow? Can you also go over the free tuition again?
Sure. The webinar will be posted after this. I don't know where the link will be, but it will be posted, so watch out for it somewhere on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. The free tuition, I won't go back to the slide. I can just explain here. Let me just pull it up on my end. So free tuition is through OSAP, and it is marketed as when you receive more grant than what your tuition costs. So the example we had on the screen, the student applied for OSAP and they were getting $8,600 in grant money. So that was free money to them from the government that they don't have to pay back. Now the tuition costs at Trent are $6,800 for a full-time program. So with the tuition costs are lower than what the grant money is, that means their grant money is going to be covering the cost of the tuition, and that is what they're calling free tuition. So if you're getting more grant money than what your school cost is, just in tuition, they call that free tuition, but you are still charged tuition by the university. But because OSAP is paying the school first, it's not coming out of your pocket, it's actually coming out of your grant funding. So that's what they classify as free tuition. Like I said earlier, it is a bit confusing to understand, but when you do your OSAP and you get your assessment, it'll tell you in a big green box at the bottom if you've got free tuition or not.
Perfect. Just as for the webinar, where you can find it, it is on YouTube on the Trent University channel, and it would just be under webinar for financing your education. But we will move on here to Grace's question. Can students participate in summer school to bring up their grades to achieve the 80% average for a scholarship?
Yeah, absolutely. We have a lot of students who do that. The only thing we want to let students know is if you do choose to go to summer school to help bring up your average, maybe it's by 1% to get the next scholarship level, that's a great idea. But just let our office know so we know to look for your grades, because your final grades will come in June. But if you're doing a summer class in July or August, then those grades might not automatically be transferred over to us with the rest of the download. So just email scholarships@trentu.ca to let them know you're taking a summer course so that they know to look for you to make sure nothing gets lost, and that if you are able to raise your average, that you get the reward for that.
Next question here from Alea again, actually. If you get a scholarship from Trent, does that change your OSAP, or does the OSAP funding stay the same no matter the scholarship you get?
So your OSAP, it has a lot of different pieces to it, and one of the questions they will ask is, are you expecting to receive any sort of scholarships, awards, or bursaries? So if you are getting a $1,000 scholarship, then you need to put that in there. There's a certain threshold, it's a bit different per student and per year, of how much scholarship you can get into or get before it starts to affect your funding. But a small scholarship won't have a large effect. If a student came in with, let's say, $12,000 of a scholarship, that would probably have an impact on their OSAP. But that reason is for students hoping to not go into debt. OSAP doesn't want you to go into debt. So if you have money that's available to you to help pay for school, they would rather you use that before giving you loan money. So if you are getting a scholarship, just make sure that it is reported into your OSAP. You can always ask our office to make sure that it's correct as well.
Perfect. Next question on here. Is there any special financial aid for students who are originally from Peterborough itself and are already in Trent?
So if you're already a Trent student, your financial aid options are to make sure you're applying for OSAP. You are still eligible for all of the bursaries. The only one that you aren't eligible for is the entrance bursary, but the bursaries that we post every September and every January, every summer if you're a student, those are for all students, not just first years. And then we have a scholarship option for students who didn't come in with a scholarship. If you come in and you have an average over the full year of 85% or higher, you could actually earn a scholarship if you didn't come in with one. So there are options for people who are already Trent students.
Awesome. Next question on here from Amy. Do any of the financial assistance options differ for mature students, or are there any additional options for mature students?
So all of the options are still there for mature students. The biggest one that will make a difference is the OSAP program. So with mature students, they will ask probably a bit more information of you, so make sure that you have that information available. But that's where you'll see the largest difference. The bursary program is essentially the same. We'll use the OSAP program to determine the bursaries, but it will be through OSAP where you'll see the biggest changes or the biggest impacts.
Awesome. Next question on here from Cassie. Thank you for saying it's a great webinar. I'll direct that to Amanda, who's actually doing most of the talking over myself. So Cassie's a full-time student starting in September, however, is taking an elective over the summer and have already received an invoice for fees due May 1st. Mm-hmm. When does my gym membership become active?
So your gym membership, I believe it becomes active the first day of classes. So that would be May 3rd.
Awesome.
But you could call the gym just to make sure. Just call the Trent Athletic Center and they'll be able to confirm that. It could potentially be May 1st, just they might run on a monthly schedule, but it is eligible as long as you're a student.
Perfect. Awesome. Alea again here. Is there an interest rate on OSAP? If so, does the interest start after you're done at Trent, or does it start from first year?
So the great thing about OSAP is if you're taking loans, the loans are interest-free as long as you're a full-time student. So we compared it to a bank loan where your interest starts and you make payments right away. Your OSAP is interest-free and there are no payments until 6 months after you stop being a full-time student. So for most students, this means 6 months after they graduate. But if for whatever reason you drop down to part-time, you might start making your payments a bit earlier. The interest rate is much better than most loans. It's prime plus 2. Confirm that, right?
Yes.
Prime plus 2, yes. Prime plus 2. And it is not going to start accumulating until you stop being a full-time student. So there's a different portion that accumulates in that 6 months of interest-free period after you graduate. But for most students, we just make sure that they know that there's no interest as long as they're a full-time student.
Awesome. Another question here from Chandrika, perhaps. I'm sorry if I totally mispronounced that name. If total family income is around $66,000, how much grant can we have for part-time studies?
So I don't know this right off the top of my head, but for part-time studies, they actually don't look at the family income. They're just looking at your income. And the reason being, through OSAP at least, is that they're expecting you to work at the same time. So if you're only applying to part-time OSAP, they don't give you any money for living expenses. They just give you money for your education because they expect you're going to school maybe 2 classes a week and the rest of the time that you would be working to help support yourself. So if you're applying part-time, the family income isn't included, but if you're applying full-time, the family income is included. So you'd want to do that calculator on the website just to see how much you could get at that range. So it's a good place to start at least. And then if you are doing full-time and start the application, you'll see that it's not just family income, there's a lot more pieces to it than that.
Perfect. Question in from Walter. When can we apply for bursaries?
So if you are a first-time student coming into Trent, you can apply for the entrance bursary starting May 1st. It's on the My Trent portal under the Finances tab, and it will close June 30th. So you have to make sure your OSAP application is in place and already submitted by that point. But then after the entrance bursary, or if you're a current student, you will apply every semester. So every semester that you have OSAP, September, January, and in the summer, you can apply for the bursaries in My Trent as well.
Awesome. And from Zafran here, you mentioned as part of our fees, we have the auxiliary fees that cover dental and health benefits and gym. I am a student who has disabilities, so I cannot use the gym. Can that portion of my fee be refunded back to me?
As far as I know, that portion isn't refunded, but it's a question for student accounts office. So you would just want to contact them and find out. There's different caveats for all the different fees that go in there. So if you contact them, they would be the ones who would start the process for any refunds, and they can tell you which pieces are refundable or not.
Awesome. Amy here. Do entrance scholarships only apply to the final grades you receive in high school? Or if you attended college, do those final college marks count?
So if you aren't coming directly from high school, then it will be based off of your college marks. So you can contact us at scholarships@trentu.ca and ask maybe if you have a really specific question or you're not quite sure of which grades will count. But if you went to high school and then went to college, we will only be basing it off of your college marks.
Again from Chandrika, and sorry again if that is not the way it's pronounced. I'm already accepted to Child and Youth Studies. If I come to the university, are you helping us apply for OSAP application?
So if you want help with your OSAP application, we can't sit down with you and do it piece by piece. It's a conflict of interest. We know a little bit too much about how it all works, but we have no problem with you calling us or emailing us with questions. If you want to come into the university to use the computer, that's absolutely fine as well. But we just can't physically sit down with you, beside you, and help you apply for all of it. But we're happy to answer questions.
It seems throughout the presentation, what I know about OSAP, that applying is relatively easy, and OSAP really does try to walk you through the process. Yeah. But do feel free to give us a call or email if you have any questions for that.
Yeah, and in the OSAP application, there's little blue links all the way along. So if you're not quite sure what something is asking, you can click the blue link, and it'll bring up a whole bunch of different examples or a definition or something that just might make it a bit more clear for you. And if you really aren't sure, at any time, you can hit the save button in OSAP and exit and come back later. So it's better to not just guess totally randomly. Just save it, find the answer, and come back later when you know what it is.
Amazing. So Tegan's in again. Is there tax payable on tuition or residence fees?
So your tuition costs when they're charged to you, that's what you're going to be paying. So that $6,800 is the cost of tuition. So everything that's involved in that is already based in that. So it's not $6,800 plus tax.
Yeah. Okay.
That'd be very tricky.
That would be
and confusing.
And from Kelly here, when will you hear back from OSAP regarding your application?
So once you've submitted your OSAP application, if it's a full-time application for the fall, it usually takes 2 or sometimes 3 days to get an assessment, but you'll get an email automatically from OSAP with the email you registered with them, and it'll say a change has been made to your OSAP or your assessment is ready. It could be a few different types of emails, but it shouldn't take too much longer than that. If you've already submitted it and you haven't got anything back and you're worried about it, that's no problem. Just call us or email us and we'll take a look for you.
Jessica here. How many courses is considered to be full-time according to OSAP?
So that is a very good question. Full-time with OSAP is 1.5 credits each semester. So if you are a full-time student at Trent, that could actually be a different definition than OSAP, because 1.5 credits each semester is technically part-time with Trent. So make sure that you know that there's 2 definitions, and it is per semester. So it's not just 3 credits from September to April. It is 1.5, so 3 half-credit courses, or 3 courses for most people, in each semester to be eligible for full-time.
Perfect. And just follow up here with Jessica's question. What happens if I originally apply as a full-time student, but decide to drop down to a part-time student after the OSAP application deadline, or vice versa?
So it doesn't happen too much that the student decides that early to drop down, but there are students who find halfway through the year that they need to drop a course, or they're not sure if they're going to be able to pass a course, so they'll drop it. We really want those students to talk to us first, because if you've received full-time funding from OSAP and then drop some courses that you received money for, you will most likely be responsible to pay OSAP back that funding. And it could actually put you in a probation status with OSAP. And if that happens too many times, you might be restricted from OSAP and not get any more funding. So if you are in 4 courses and you want to drop down to 3, you would still be eligible for full-time, but anything lower than that, you would no longer be eligible for the funding you received. So we usually tell students at any time if they're dropping a course to contact us first and just make sure that there isn't going to be any issues or implications with their OSAP.
Awesome. Perfect. I do actually just want to let everyone know I am running low on questions here, so if you do have anything else just burning in your mind, feel free to throw it in the chat here, because once I do run out of these questions, we are just going to end the webinar for the evening. And I did want to put it to everybody's attention, just a website that is very useful here, trentu.ca/student finances. That way you can navigate on our Trent website just in terms of what we do offer at the university. But next question here from Walter. Can I pay my OSAP from college, or should I wait till I finish all of my studies?
That would be your choice. Your OSAP will stay interest-free as long as you're a full-time student. So if you're in college right now and taking the summer off and then coming to Trent in September, your 6-month period will not pass, so you won't be making payments because you'll come back to full-time studies before your interest-free period is up. But that could be your choice. If you're able to pay your OSAP off, then that's great. You can get rid of your debt before you start here, but that is your choice if you want to do that or not.
Sarah here. Hi again. What are the hours that we can call?
So our office is open Monday to Friday. Monday to Thursday, we're open 8:30 to 4:30. And then on Friday, we're open from 10 to 4:30. And we don't close for the lunch hour, so call at any time. And like I said earlier, you can email us as well, financialaid@trentu.ca. We do our very best to get back to you within 24 hours. So sometimes when it's super busy, it might be a little bit more than that, but we usually get back to everybody within a day.
Awesome. Serena in with a question. Does OSAP cover extra expenses like living expenses?
So if you're a full-time student and taking OSAP, they are already taking into consideration your living expenses. So they know how much your tuition costs and where Trent is located. So they have a general idea of how much the cost of living is here and how much the program costs and your textbooks. All of that is included. So when you get your money from OSAP, it is designed to help you cover your tuition, your living expenses, and your books and supplies all together. So it's not going to cover 100%. It's really not designed to, but it is supposed to help with all those things.
Perfect. Aaliyah in with another question. What's the maximum number of courses you can take per semester?
So that, in general, we say 2.5 credits is a full-time course load. So that's 5 courses for most people, 5 half-credit courses. If you are in good academic standing, so after your first year, if you've done well and passed all of your courses, they will let you do 3.0 credits in each semester, so 6 courses in each semester. Anything above that, you have to apply for. So it's not a flat out no, you can't take any more, but you do have to request and put in a petition to have more than 6 courses at a time, just because it's a lot and they want to make sure you're going to be successful. They don't want you to overload and not do well in a course when you didn't have to take an extra course for any reason.
Absolutely. And from Martin, I may have missed this piece of info. Oh, my computer's doing funny things again. I may have missed this piece of info, but where does OSAP application begin? On their website or on Trent's website?
It's on the OSAP website. So you can go to ontario.ca/OSAP, and that's where you'll see that calculator first if you want to do that first. Otherwise, you can go in and register or log in if you've already had OSAP before and start the application from there. They'll give you 3 options. It'll say full-time application, part-time application, and the interest-free status. So you can just click on whichever one you need to start and go from there.
Actually, really good question here from Jonah. When you're on the OSAP website, do you need to apply to OSAP to actually use the calculator?
No. So the OSAP website, that ontario.ca/OSAP, the calculator is just on the webpage. So it's not asking any personal information. It doesn't need your name or for you to log in. Anybody can go on to the website and just put in the answers to the 5 questions and get a calculator. So we use it a lot for examples and can go through 10 or 15 different examples if we need to.
And from Jessica here again. I regularly see a psychiatrist and do not live in the Peterborough area. I understand that the mental health care can be transferred to a team at Trent. Does this have a cost?
So we have a student accessibility services office at Trent, and you'd want to make an appointment with them or just at least call them or walk in and see them. They have a whole team there that you can talk to in addition with the health services office. So there are counselors and nurses and accessibility coordinators. So make an appointment with them and figure out where to go from there because they'll be better able to answer your questions than I am.
Definitely. Everyone at Trent is super eager to answer questions. So if you throw emails, check out the websites, give calls. We're always there and typically answering within 24 hours to make sure that students' needs are being met at the university. The next question in from Aiden here. How do I know if I've been officially accepted? My understanding as a high school student that I have a conditional offer. Does that mean I should be applying for OSAP and bursaries?
So if you are accepted to the university, I'll let Zach answer how do you know if you're accepted after. But for OSAP, you don't have to have an accepted offer to apply. You can actually go in right now and apply to OSAP without knowing exactly where you're going. So you can go in and put an application for Trent and fill out all of the info and get an assessment right away so that you have an idea whether or not you have a conditional offer, you're waiting for an acceptance, you can have that information right now.
Awesome. In terms of your offers to campus, you're going to find out in several different ways. You're going to be getting an email. You're going to be seeing it on your My Trent portal. You'll be able to see it on the OUAC website as well as getting a package in your mail. So lots of ways that it is going to be coming towards you. Now, the majority of offers that we do send out are conditional just because we don't have your full grade 12 averages yet until the end of the year. Essentially, as long as you are meeting the bottom line for your program, so a 70 for most of our general programs, that conditional offer is going to be rolled over into a full-time offer. And you will get notifications if it does look like you are falling on the lower end of that. The next question in from Amber. Are you aware of any bursaries or scholarship designed for mature students returning to school?
So our bursary program, it's based off of the OSAP application, so it's not specifically for one type of student or another. We will look at the resources that are available, and we have hundreds of bursaries from our donors that are out there. So some of them are as simple as a student entering first year or fourth year. Some of them are a student in math or whatever it might be. So there are small pieces of criteria for some of them, but in general, they are just general Trent bursaries for free money coming from the university.
Awesome. Serena in here. If OSAP does not cover all of your expenses, is there any other source for income?
So OSAP isn't designed to cover everything. A big piece of the OSAP application is that they're expecting you to bring some of your own money. So students that come in thinking OSAP's going to cover 100% will fall behind financially. So we want all students to have a summer job. The number that we throw out there is $3,000. That's the amount that we want students to contribute, or that OSAP is expecting you to contribute to your education. So that could be from a summer job, it could be from an RESP or a scholarship, bursaries, whatever it might be. But you just have to go into your education knowing that OSAP won't cover 100%. It's not designed to, and you don't want to stress yourself out thinking it will, and then come February find that you owe the school a bunch of money or you don't have enough money for rent because you relied only on OSAP. So it's a good idea to have another source of income like a job.
Question here from Tegan that I will tackle. What is the residence cost for the 2018-2019 school year? Residence costs, they do vary depending on where you're wanting to live. If you're looking for single room, double room, triple room, apartment styles, or the premium suites. So it is quite the gap on there, where it could be anywhere from 7,000 to the higher end of 12, maybe 13,000. I don't know the number specifically in mind, but you can totally check that out on the website, trentu.ca/housing. Or if you do have any questions, maybe with regards to specific residences, you could also give them an email at residents@trentu.ca, and they'd be more than willing to chat with you about that. A question here from Jessica again. If the family income of 2018 is half of what it was in 2017, which year do I use as a reference for OSAP?
So the OSAP application will ask you for the 2017 income only. So for students whose family income is going to change a lot for 2018, there's actually the opportunity for you to talk to our office and we can submit an appeal. So an example that a lot of people have is a parent retires or loses a job, but that happens in 2018, not necessarily in the year that OSAP asked about. So if that's the case, the income could be quite a bit lower, and the amount that OSAP is using is just not realistic, and it might change the OSAP application a lot. So if you're in that situation and the family income is a lot lower than what you had to tell OSAP, put in the amount that it's asking for, and then call our office or email us or come see us, and we'll see if maybe we can submit an appeal to get that information changed for you if you're eligible.
Perfect. And then question in from Aaliyah. Does the money earned from the work-study job go towards your tuition?
The money that you get from a TWSP position is just like a paycheck. So it comes to you, direct deposit or a check or however you ask. So it's just like any other job.
Yeah, so it's your money. You could put it towards your education. You could put it towards realistically
Rent or
whatever you want,
yeah.
because it's your money.
Yeah.
So that does seem to be all the questions we do have up on here.
Awesome.
So I'm going to wrap things up. I do just want to remind everyone, this is going to be posted on our YouTube channel for Trent University. As well, you could go check out the website for finances at Trent, which is trentu.ca/student finances. Or also give an email over to financialaid@trentu.ca. Maybe you'll have Amanda on the other end helping in person that way.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I do want to thank you all for joining us for the webinar, and thank you, Amanda, yourself for giving that presentation. And if you haven't already, I do suggest come visiting campus. That way you really can get a feel of what everything does look like. We do offer tours Monday through Saturday at 1 p.m. And you could book those at trentu.ca/tours. Other than that, thank you for coming and have a great evening.
Thank you.